All right, so what are you looking for out of this speech today?
Well, Mr. Trump is going to give a very detailed speech considering how this is one of the greatest threats to our country today, and that is radical Islamic terrorism. Mr. Trump is going to talk about how to destroy ISIS and not simply contain it. And there's not going to be any regime change, which has shown to have failed over the last decade.
What new specifics, Katrina, will he offer on that note on how to destroy and defeat ISIS?
Well, and that speech is coming at 2 o'clock today. That's also going to include ideology, as your reporting just mentioned. He's going to talk about who we should be letting into this country and who we shouldn't. That is something that did not happen after 9/11 with regards to visas. And it's going to be a great speech, and I think that it's going to be one that all Americans will appreciate.
All right, and I also want to ask you before we move on about this fundraiser that was held in the Hamptons for Trump over the weekend. Trump's campaign manager says the campaign raised $132 million in the last 2 months. Are you planning to keep the fundraising momentum and add more donors? What direction is that going in?
Absolutely. You know, despite all of the media chaos, there are so many people in this country who want a president that supports law and order, that wants a president that can get the corruption out of government. And we are bringing on more donors by the day. We've had a great couple of months in fundraising. We're getting ready to run some ads. We're getting ready for the big debate, and we're getting ready for November.
All right, and Trump's fundraising, will it be enough to match Hillary Clinton's war chest?
Well, it's really not about the war chest. It's about spending smart, and that's what Mr. Trump has been able to prove even back into the primary when he had hundreds of millions of dollars spent against him, and Mr. Trump won handedly against 16 other candidates with about $60 million.
Katrina, really quickly, it's Dagan McDowell. What's the upside of Donald Trump continuing to complain about the media? The Wall Street Journal points out today in its editorial page that the media was against Ronald Reagan, Bush 41, Bush 43. You know, so what? It's kind of the history of the mainstream liberal-leaning media. And I just don't understand how complaining about it helps win over the people that he needs to target, including some Republicans.
No, you're absolutely right. It is no secret that the media definitely skews left. However, I think this cycle, many people will agree that it's above and beyond, over the top, when it comes to Mr. Trump and his campaign. And I think that's Mr. Trump's way of fighting back. You know, the last 2 presidential cycles, we had Republican candidates that just sat there and took a beating, and Mr. Trump isn't going to do that. And therefore, the voters want someone that's going to fight back, because they are tired of seeing left-wing reporters literally beat Trump supporters into submission, into supporting policies they don't agree with. It just shuts them down, and that's not what they're seeing in this campaign. So this is essentially Mr. Trump fighting back and making sure that his side of the story gets out.
Hey, Katrina, Harlan Hill here. So I loved how when Donald was announcing his economic plans, he debuted his team, the people that were advising him on how to, steer the economy going forward. Is he going to do the same thing with his foreign policy speech? Is he going to debut the team that will be advising him and has helped him craft this plan?
Oh, absolutely. He's going to be debuting the team in all areas of government, which he will be responsible for. He has released some of the names on the foreign policy team, and he's going to be continuing to add to that, as well as to the economic team. That's extremely important. He understands that it helps voters understand who's surrounding him. That's going to be determining the decisions that he makes. And identifying those people is extremely helpful. So absolutely, he's going to continue to release people that are going to be on his team.
Will we see them today?
I don't know what his plan is for during the speech, but some of those have already been released, some of our foreign policy advisors. Whether or not the new foreign policy advisors are going to be released today or not, I'm not quite sure.
All right, and just recent polling, Katrina, anything worry you? I mean, Clinton's up in Florida, New Hampshire. She's extending the lead as far as the entire electoral map is concerned. Is there something that you would point to that the campaign is failing to do right now as to why you're losing momentum a little bit?
Well, I'm not really concerned about the polls yet. Again, we haven't been running ads and there hasn't been a debate, and I think that's really where you're going to start to see the competition begin. As far as the polling, we have seen over the last 2 weeks, particularly with the NBC poll, I'm assuming that's the one you're talking about in swing states, they have been weighting Democrats in their polls more heavily. They didn't even list it in the methodology in the swing states, and even in CNN's poll, they left out a complete voting demographic. So we're even seeing some of the polling in the media outlets being a little bit skewed. So we're really not concerned about that. Mr. Trump is speaking past the media right now. Like I said, I'm not giving too much thought to the polls until after we really get into the campaign, post-ads, post-debates, and then we'll go from there. But we feel really strong about Mr. Trump's position. Again, he is bringing tens of thousands of people out to hear his message, whereas Hillary Clinton can't even fill a high school gym.
Katrina, one of the biggest messages he's had this election cycle has been on immigration, whether it's building a wall or what have you. Is he going to outlay some new plans and give some more clarity on his immigration policies in today's speech?
Absolutely. The wall is a deal breaker. He's definitely keeping the wall. What you're going to see as far as immigration goes is really strictly geared towards visas in today's speech. That's extremely important because we hear a lot about homegrown terrorism, usually from a second-generation radicalized family. And so it's really important that we get people to understand why this is happening and then how to prevent it from happening in the future.
Yeah, and as far as that outline of the new immigration policy, he's expected to talk about how the U.S. would stop issuing visas in any case where it cannot perform adequate screenings. I'm just looking at some of the latest tweets that we've seen from Donald Trump, Katrina, talking about certain Republicans who have lost to me would rather save face by fighting me than see the U.S. Supreme Court get proper appointments. Sad. Have we started to hear Donald Trump change his tone at all based on, believe it or not, you just said you don't think that the polling is that important right now. But we have heard him reference recently what he would do if he didn't win and things like that. I mean, what are we to make of when he starts talking like that?
Well, I think I just would remind you that Donald Trump is not a career politician. He doesn't have canned responses. And when he's asked a question, he just simply answers it like any other person would. If you ask him what happens if you don't win, he'll say, well, I'm going to go on vacation. So there really isn't a canned response for that. He's not a politician, and I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes, particularly for those of us in the media or inside the Beltway who are used to a candidate not saying things like that. Donald Trump's just being honest.
All right.